All right, it is 12:02 and I think we'll get going. So hello everyone and welcome to the Indiana Farmers Market Community of Practice 2021 webinar series. I am Christina Ferroli, the Grants Program Coordinator with the Indiana Cooperative Development Center. Today's webinar is Gleaning Indiana's Fields with the Society of St. Andrew. We have with us Don Barnes, who is the Indiana Regional Director of the Society of St. Andrew. Dawn has worked 12 years in South Africa in the areas of community development, agriculture, and HIV/AIDS. She has also worked as a mental health clinician in Richmond, Virginia, and as a program associate with Week of Compassion, a relief, refugee, and development fund for the Disciples of Christ Christian Church in Indianapolis. Dawn is passionate about those who are underserved and making connections to services that are life-giving. Dawn enjoys cooking, biking, gardening, and she is the mother to 2 teenagers and 2 rescue dogs. Also today, we have Mandy Wright-Jarrett with us. Mandy leads the original farmers market on Wednesdays mornings in downtown Indy. And she is the Indianapolis City Market Operations and Facility Manager. Mandy is also the director of the Fort Bend Farmers Market in Lawrence. Mandy has been working in the farmers market industry close to 13 years throughout Indiana. She also has an urban farming certification through Purdue Extension's urban farming program. And she is also a huge supporter of better food accessibility for low-income families. Also with us today is Ashley Brooks. Ashley has worked for more than 15 years in every corner of the food and hospitality industry, from cheese making to launching a nationally acclaimed restaurant, Milktooth, to co-founding a farmers market, the Garfield Park Farmers Market. Is that the Garfield Park one, Ashley? Yes, and that's where I met her, along with producing an award-winning festival, Baby Got Brunch. Currently, Ashley is focused on holistic wellness of the Indianapolis food scene. She has helped small business owners through pandemic recovery with one-on-one consulting pro bono program. She is active in local groups and events, particularly those promoting food justice and equity in the restaurant community. Although her path has evolved, her mission has remained the same: to cultivate a more positive and equitable food culture in Indianapolis and beyond by uplifting marginalized voices and supporting women in underserved communities. I want to remind everyone to keep their mics muted and to type your questions into the chat, because at the end of the presentation, we're going to have time for a Q&A. So thank you, and I turn it over to Dawn.
Good morning. I'm going to share my screen. I guess it's afternoon at this point. Can you see that? Are we good? Perfect. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Christina, for the invitation to join you all here this afternoon and to share about the work of Society of St. Andrew. And I'm grateful for Ashley and Mandy, who also is joining us and the work that they do as well. So I want to share a little bit about the work of Society of St. Andrew. Let's see if I'm going to be able to, there we go. Our mission is to bring people together to harvest and share healthy food, to reduce food waste and build community by sharing that healthy food with our hungry neighbors. A little bit of history. We are a national organization that was started back in 1979 in Virginia, and we opened the Indiana office in January of 2018. So it's an organization that's been around for over 40 years, and we have 8 other offices that are from Virginia along the East Coast down into Florida. And so our office was the first hop over into the Midwest. So what we do is kind of build a bridge between food insecurity and food that's going to waste. So just to address a little bit about the food insecurity rate, and I know I can see some of the people on this call who know our work and know what the needs are, but just for those of you who aren't as familiar about food insecurity and how that incorporates into our work. So these are some stats that were pre-COVID that Indiana was at about a 13% food insecurity rate. And you can see the stats for individuals and children. However, during COVID, as we all know, that changed and shifted a bit. And this is Northwestern University has followed food insecurity throughout the pandemic. So I pulled this information yesterday with the comparative rates of what the black line is from across the United States, and the purple line is specifically from Indiana. And you can kind of see the scale up and down. Currently, we look like it's going on a downward shift, and that is primarily due to the increase in SNAP benefits that is coming in. You think about stimulus checks that came in, you can see that dip down in March. And we currently have the child tax credits that are coming in right now. So I was just reading an article this morning about that. The trend is that will probably go back up a bit as we enter into the fall, and some of those benefits end. There'll be a shift again, and we are not through the pandemic. So overall, you can see that the rate of that was in pre-COVID times at 13% is currently sitting at about 17%. Back in July, it jumped back up to 19%. So the need is still there. People are still struggling to meet maybe unemployment. Deciding what bill do they pay first. So that is just some stats around the food insecurity, that the need is still there. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have the food waste. And food waste is the second largest contributor to our methane gas pollution. And the stat is about 40% that of our food never makes it to market, whether that's in the field or in the process of getting to the market. There's lots of reasons that happens, but the reality is that there is enough food grown in America to feed everybody in America, but 40% of that never actually makes it into our market. And this triangle from the EPA is how we don't want it to end up in the landfill. That is the least place that we want it. And so We're Society of St. Andrew comes in as meeting that we're to help feed hungry people in that triangle there. So what does all this have to do with gleaning? Often people ask about, is this cleaning? Do you play the bagpipes? Our name is a bit awkward. Dates back to those 70 days. And so what we do is we engage with local farmers to glean their excess produce. We don't want anything that farmers can sell, and we actually promote what our farmers do and talk about the great products that they grow and that they give back to their community. Once we have engaged with the farmer, we then organize volunteers to go in and physically, pick up those products. And then in turn, those are donated directly to local hunger relief organizations. We work with refugee communities, food banks, food pantries, low-income housing. We are able to donate to any of those places, and all of that can be donated as long as it's not resold. We don't have a preference of where the food goes. Ideally, we like to glean on a local farm with local volunteers and keep that food donated as local as possible. And then, of course, that in turn helps feed hungry people. So gleaning is an old concept that is initially taken out of an Old Testament story where farmers are called to leave their excess for those who are poor and orphaned. And you fast forward to 2021, and that's still relative. It just may look a little different. It happens in farmers markets and in fields, in parking lots, and from a dock. We often fill up pickup trucks, like in this picture. We've done lots of corn over the last few weeks, and we filled up backs of corn, back of pickup trucks full of corn that in turn is directly delivered. We have gleaned from a 200-acre cucumber farm that looks like picking up pickles that are. Picking up cucumbers that have been already harvested for pickles, and we take what is left over, because the reality is that cucumbers are taken for specific specks that look really pretty and are certain green and certain size and circumference, and the rest of them are like spat back out of that machine, and we have gleaners that come in and do that. It looks like picking up 20 or 30 pounds from a local urban farmer here in central Indiana that are just not marketable. They're wonky carrots, or they grew too many onions, whatever that may look like. And of course, what we want to talk about a little bit more in detail today is gleaning at farmers markets. So what that looks like is, and Ashley and Mandy can speak a little bit more about their perspective of what that looks like. From our perspective, we work with market managers with markets that are not already being gleaned. And then we organize the volunteers to go in on a weekly basis that goes vendor to vendor with bags or crates to pick up whatever is left over that they do not want to sell or will not sell, or that is just not going to make it to the next market, or that they're overly generous and just want to donate. So with the volunteers go at the end of market, pick back up those bags or crates, and then that's donated to local hunger relief organizations. So currently here in Indianapolis, we are working with the original farmers market and Garfield Park, and we have our volunteers that go in each week and glean that, and those are all of those items are being donated to Wheeler Mission. And that is a Wheeler Mission is a local mission that provides lots of services for those who are homeless here in Indianapolis. And so they've always been really grateful for all of the donations that come in, and they often are excited about being able to repurpose those into meals that same day. So that is kind of a summary about what that looks like for our farmers markets. What we are able to provide as Society of St. Andrew are benefits to our farmers. Our volunteers sign a liability form where they're not covered. You know, if something happens with a volunteer on their farm, that they don't have any liability there on our volunteers. They're also covered under the Good Samaritan Care Act, that whatever they donate in good faith is received in good faith, so that donation of their product has no liability on them. And then at the end of the year, we're able to provide a tax statement for their use to say how many pounds that we glean from them and the product. We don't put a value on it. We let them decide how they would like to use that. But that a lot of our, especially smaller urban farms, are really appreciative of that they can't sell it at market, but they can use that for their tax purposes at the end of the year. So so that's kind of the farming side, and that also accounts for the same as any of the vendors at our farmers market. Sometimes we get donated salsa or popcorn or whatever other vendors may have. It applies to those vendors at the farmers markets as well. So we work with volunteers of all sorts, of all ages, and we really value our volunteers. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. We are a two-woman full-time show here in Indiana, and so without volunteers, we could not do it. And we have some really, we have a couple of volunteers that show up at almost every opportunity. And this year we've been able to engage, I think 7 congregations who've been able to take on the volunteering for both of those farmers markets. So one congregation takes on a month at a time. So they are the ones that help us organize the volunteers for that month that will come from that congregation, and they take on August. So that's worked out really well for our farmers markets. But we usually have last minute opportunities at field gleanings, and those go up on our volunteer page. We put that on social media, and sometimes we have 2 volunteers and sometimes we have 20 volunteers. So it depends on the time and the date. And but we really, anybody is welcome to come volunteer, all ages. We gleaned with a 9-month-old out in the apple orchard up to last week we had an 83-year-old out in the cornfield. So everybody's welcome to come and glean. And of course, our donors make this work possible. So just wanted to share, these are some photos of gleanings of different products. We use these red mesh bags. We've had a group of volunteers from that come out and cut those up for us and knot them together so that we can able to just take them in a bag and go out to the farm and put apples or cucumbers or whatever the product may be into that. Here's some photos from our farmers market gleanings. These were our masked events from 2020 of the outside of downtown. And we are grateful for all the vendors who donate with us. We also work with large loads of food. So we have about 40 potato farmers that we work with throughout the United States that donate truckloads of potatoes specifically, but other loads that are rejected at your local grocery store. Say a semi-load of watermelons show up at Kroger, Meyer, Walmart, you know, whatever. I'm not picking on anybody. happens at all of them. Less, thankfully, since COVID does this happen, but they could reject a whole load of watermelons just because of a couple of dents or imperfections that are in, you know, the bins that they open and look at. And when that happens, we try to connect that with, you know, a local food bank that could take that rather than the trucker going and dumping that into the landfill, because that's the easiest for a trucker to do, because the trucker's always looking to move on to the next load. So we also, we often get calls for a truckload of zucchini that needs to move. That's just that for whatever circumstances, they all vary, that we try to connect that with local food banks or organizations that can take that without being dumped. So this is what we call produce drops. We've been doing this for 40 years, where a truckload shows up in a parking lot, and we have volunteers that rebag those, and those are distributed within the same day. And then during COVID, we were able to work with the USDA Farm to Family food boxes, which were provided through the USDA, that contain these great products of dairy and produce and meat. And we were able to do distributions in 13 counties throughout the state with these boxes. And this was kind of in addition to what the food banks were already doing, the local food banks. This was just another line that we were able to get to food banks that are not necessarily served, food pantries that are not necessarily served by the local food banks, or smaller pantries that are just open once a week. We were able to get those boxes into more hands. So how can you get involved? You can connect us to a farmer that you know that is needs to get rid of some excess stuff that doesn't want to see. None of our farmers really want to see anything go to waste. So if you know a farmer, please connect us throughout the state. We are busy all over the state. Our office is here in Indianapolis, but we are working with farmers throughout the state. I think we have about currently 35 to 40 farmers. That kind of fluctuate depending on the product and if they plan and how well the planning goes and how well the market goes. Please come volunteer with us. Connect us to an agency that you know that would like to receive fresh produce that could use more. Our hosting, or connect us to your local farmers market that is not already being gleaned. We would love to have a conversation to see how we could set that up. And donations are always welcome, of course. We just got this new little text. If you're interested in volunteering, you can text SOSA Indiana to 22828, but you can also go onto our website and sign up to volunteer, or to donate to a local agency can go on and provide that information. A farmer can go on. All that can happen over our website that I'll put on the last slide here. But I did promise Christina that I would talk about our top 3 Glean products in Indiana. So I don't know, can we open up for any guesses, Christina?
Yeah, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves.
Anybody have a guess for our top 3 products?
Cucumbers.
Corn, cucumbers, any others?
Tomatoes.
Zucchini.
Tomatoes, zucchini, I heard. So it's stiff competition between these two. If I look at over the last 3 years that we've been in operation, it's a stiff competition between apples and corn. And it depends on the year of which. There was one year we didn't have, I think it was, I'm all confused with COVID. I think it was 2019 that we didn't have very much corn because of excess rain. There's been, you know, the weather conditions really vary, but corn and apples are really our top products. And then there's the next one would be watermelons. We assess that top product by the pounds that we are able to glean. And of course, watermelons make it in there because they way more than a lot of other things. But we have gleaned lots of cucumbers, potatoes, pumpkins will be some of the other top products. So this year probably corn is going to win out, but then, you know, apples come in the fall, so it's a give or take in that. And I want to share this one last kind of self-promoting slide that we really need votes. We have made the top 200 for a $25,000 grant from State Farm Neighborhood Assist, and the voting goes through Friday. And all you have to do is put your phone up to that QR code or the link that is at the top, and you can hit all 10 votes for us. And it just puts us, we need to make it to the top 40. And I just checked because one of our voters emailed in, we're at 130. So the more people I can get to vote, we got to make it up to that 40. So please go and vote for us and vote every day. Tell your friends to vote and help us to get into that top 40. It's a great opportunity for us here in Indiana. So there's the last screen with my contact information, and Ann Rodkey is our program coordinator, and some of you know her and have met her, and she's sitting across from me right now in our office. And we have a part-time person in Ohio as well that is based in Cincinnati. She is starting out part-time this year and will go full-time next year, and she's helping us service some of the counties that are closer over to the Ohio border and working mainly in Cincinnati as well. So we are doing a lot of stuff across the borders as well. If anybody's in that area or know of anybody in the Cincinnati area, she is gleaning currently about 7 farmers markets a week. So it's she's doing a lot of organizing this summer. So I will end there and hand it back over to Christina and or to Ashley and Mandy, whoever wants to go first, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, anyone. And please don't forget to write your questions in the chat. Mandy, do you want to go first?
Sure. My experience, well, first off, Dawn, that's just amazing. I was aware of everything that you all did, but seeing it all in one big presentation, it still is pretty amazing and mind-blowing. So my experience has been very positive. From my perspective as someone conducting a market, especially the last 2 years, we started the program last year with the original farmers market, and we had moved our location to the Circle. The last 2 seasons, we've been really strapped for volunteers and for additional support. So because they have everything so organized and so put together, it's really a no-brainer for us from an organizational standpoint. It's wonderful. I get a text 10 minutes before they arrive. And I open up the barricade and let them in, and they pull in with their vehicle. And they do, what's wonderful too is they weigh everything and track data for us as well, which everyone knows that's currency for many organizations to have that data to use for future, applying for future funding, and just to highlight how important what you're doing is important. So I think we're kind of nearing the 4,000 pound mark from last year and this year of just produce that the original farmers market has donated through predominantly our vendors. But they just make it really easy to work with. The volunteers, I love this year, they're doing the same volunteer for the whole month because you get to know them, become familiar with them, and then they get to know the vendors more. And then they just walk around, check with the vendors at the end of the day to see what they have not moved. And we love it because I know the vendors love it too, because they don't want to waste any food and they don't want to haul food home, you know, if it's just going to end up being thrown away. So seeing that food go, not be wasted, not end up in the trash is always important. And they just make it really easy. Again, we're shorthanded at the original farmers market. So it's really not a lot of effort on my part. They do all of the heavy lifting in the organization. And it's really easy.
Thank you, Mandy. Ashley?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I just want to echo what Mandy said. I actually learned a lot about the overall organization with that presentation. So that was great to see all the numbers laid out like that. Our process at Garfield Park Farmers Market is very similar to the original Farmers Market. We have absolutely loved having the organization come out and glean every week. They have amazing volunteers, you know, and everyone just kind of seems to know exactly what to do. They're very respectful of the vendors. If, you know, just asking them every week if they'd like to, they never feel pressured to donate. And so we, as a market, we started in 2015. This is our 6th season, and we have just kind of been growing exponentially every year. We became a nonprofit in 2017. We are a all volunteer-led board of 9 people. We have one paid position, which is our market manager. And which is like the most incredible position. Hannah is our market manager, and we just could not do this without her. So we're very grateful. And sometimes Mandy steps in for us as well. So I think all the markets have good relationships around Indianapolis. Yeah, so we, our revenue is continuing to grow every year. Last year was actually our biggest year yet. So we had roughly 430,000 in revenue, total sales from our vendors, which was an 82% increase from prior seasons. So yeah, despite the pandemic, I think we've seen people come to the farmers markets as a primary source of groceries and getting healthy food. So we fought really hard. Mandy was right there with us last year fighting to get the markets open and to basically convince the city that we were an essential service, not just like a community event, but essential service to folks who need good food. So let's see, we had, I think last year it was around 1,100 pounds donated or gleaned. And I think that equals somewhere around 3,000 servings or something like that. So we've definitely seen the impact grow as our market grows, which is incredible. And yeah, we're incredibly grateful to have Society of St. Andrew glean at our market. And like I said, I think the volunteers are wonderful. Our vendors really appreciate it and are always happy to donate. And I do believe Wheeler Mission ends up giving the Garfield produce to 3 different community centers and food pantries around Garfield Park. So we do see that stay local and impact our community even more. So.
Thank you, Ashley. I have a question for Dawn. So Indiana, you have, I think you shared 3 farmers markets that you're gleaning with. What states are doing the most gleaning, either through the Society of St. Andrews, or do you have some stats on what's happening?
Sure. We have 8 regional offices, and North Carolina and South Carolina are a combined office. And I just pulled up the numbers because you asked. I thought it was stiff competition between North Carolina and Florida. They're usually the two bigger gleaners, just because Florida especially has is a state where they can glean really all year round. And they move a ton of large loads of food. So they have 2 or 3 farms that they work with that they'll pull out a trailer load of zucchini every week, or squash, or whatever product it may be in season. So Florida is our number 1 glean state that we have offices in, and actually Indiana is number 2. But that a lot of that is working with the farm to family food boxes that was still counted in our pounds, and then North Carolina. So just to give you an idea, over 8 million pounds have been gleaned in Florida as of this is at the end of July of this year. We've done over 5 million here in Indiana, and 3 million in North Carolina, over 3 million in North Carolina. So we have offices in Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia, Georgia, and Alabama as well. However, from our national perspective, we do move and work across the United States. So we do help move those large loads throughout the US. I think all of our offices are doing farmers markets, some more than others. Tennessee has a big one that they do downtown Nashville. Alabama has a big one. And then there's several other smaller ones. Our hesitancy has been for this year is having volunteers because of COVID. And last year was, we thought would be a time where we'd have more volunteers, and it really wasn't. So we, as a staff of 2, can't take that on without having the volunteer help. So we haven't really expanded that this year, and just kind of kept to Indianapolis where we're based. And we have one more in Johnson County that some master gardeners are helping us do. So,
oh, cool.
So really, we would love to be able to expand that, but we need a key person to help with that, and then engage local volunteers in doing that to be able to expand. So I hope, through calls like this and education and knowing that it is a possibility, we could help expand that into, the winter or even into 2022 to be able to do that more throughout the state.
That makes sense, because we have prior to COVID, about 240 farmers markets across the state. And we're trying to kind of aware if that's the accurate number, but that's a pretty good ballpark figure. So there's definitely room for St. Andrew to grow, the Society of St. Andrew to grow. That's very exciting. Anybody have any other questions for Dawn? My question was, I know you support Wheeler Mission, but Ashley explained that some of the other local community centers or in the area also benefit from the produce, which is really good. It helps alleviate food insecurity or in that specific area or pocket of the city. So that's kind of nice to hear that.
Last year, we donated to 242 organizations throughout the state, and from the end of July, we have already hit 213 organizations. So that's throughout that are, having access. When we have 1,000 pounds of corn, most smaller food pantries can't take that. So sometimes, we love to stay as local as we can, but if that one pantry in that rural community is not open till the following Saturday and we gleaned on, that Friday, it just, we take it to whatever's open, because most of the time the produce can't sit out, and, cold storage is an issue. And so we really try to find what is local, but it also depends on what's open and then the amount of product that we have as well. And, but everybody, is really super happy to have, fresh corn or fresh carrots, that they have access to, that they are able to get and not, and not have to pay for it. And it frees up local hunger relief organizations. It frees up their budget to be able to buy other things that they need if they can, have this fresh produce donated.
So you mentioned you'd like to have some connections with farmers markets. So do you have a goal in mind, where you'd like to be in 2022?
Well, it was at the beginning of last year, we had kind of a goal of doing 10 farmers markets throughout the states. But then, of course, when COVID started happening was about the time that markets were starting up. And so Anne, my colleague, worked diligently to help come up with a list of farmers that we could promote that had quickly switched to online markets, or that wanted to do that. We tried to help our farmers as much as we could in getting that information out for them. So we would love to have markets throughout the state that are not already being gleaned. We know that some of the markets are being gleaned from a local food pantry, which is great, and we don't want to duplicate any services. We're not here to recreate the wheel. We're just here to help get the excess. So we would love to have at least 10 would be great. We're open, to as many as we could. But what it takes is that local connection to volunteers, and that takes a little bit of work to build that up. And so this year is the first time, like Mandy was saying, of engaging 7 different congregations as taking that on as a project, or, a book club or whatever local, having those engagements, but having that consistency of volunteers is what we see is it's been a really great benefit of getting, building that community and getting to know where it's coming from and where it's going. And then in turn, Wheeler's oh, it's Society of St. Andrew's here. We know them, and this is great stuff. And that kind of connections is really, it's what we're about, is, building those relationships and community.
I'd like to comment, because you're doing it where they're coming for that whole entire month, it actually creates less work for the farmers markets, because then we already know each other. We don't have to do, on the end of the market day is always really hectic with letting vendors in and out and traffic and all of that. So just by having the same people there for the whole month is a game changer, honestly, for time management. It's really helpful. I love it.
That makes sense. So you basically would like to connect to more farmers markets and then groups that would like to help participate in the gleaning process and work and donate at least a month at a time. So yeah, it's great. I think there's a lot of service organizations out there that could possibly want to kind of become involved and help out. Does anybody have any other questions for any of the three presenters? I did notice that the link to the State Farm grant competition was posted also. And we are recording this and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel, and the presentation will be made available also. So, and you're more than welcome to share with service organizations, share with other farmers markets, community centers, food pantries who could connect with the Society of St. Andrew through Dawn and also kind of benefit from gleaning that's happening. So please spread the word.
You know, just speak to Vivian's question about working with growers. If you do, you're welcome to connect with me or with Ann personally, an email or phone call. But there is a link I put in for specifically for farmers that would want to donate. They could fill out that form directly, and that comes to my inbox. So even though it's on our website, that if it's in Indiana, it comes to me. And we would definitely, would love to connect with more farmers who are interested, and that goes for agencies that would like to receive as well. There's a link on the website as well that they can go in and just fill out that information, and we add that into our database as well. And of course, volunteering too.
I have a question, Dawn. You mentioned online markets. Because of COVID, there is a trend in the farmers market arena to do online markets and pick up or register, order, and then at a pickup point. Have you thought about how to connect in with those services? Here in Indianapolis, we have Market Wagon, and then there's Hoosier Harvest Farmers Market. So we have a few here in central Indiana. Have you been able to glean or connect with them at all?
Some of those that are selling on there do glean with us already, and we haven't. Ann has a whole outreach of farmers that she works with, and we do mailings and we do farm connections. But a lot of those that are already selling on the online markets, we do glean with or already have a connection with. But again, like we want farmers to sell as much as they can. Like if there's a way, if they can sell it on those markets, that's what we want to promote. And at the end of the day, like last week, I went and picked up from I did on social media. They're not afraid. I picked up from Stuckey's farm, and they had over 300 pounds of just excess stuff they were not going to sell, and they didn't want it to go off. I went and picked that up and took it directly to a pantry that was in 20 minutes of them, and that was in progress. So that went straight from the farm to that. But at the same time, I do a social media post and I'm like, hey, Stuckey's is a great farm. It's a great organization. Go and support them, because not only are they growing great products, but they're also donating back locally. And so we want to promote our farmers. We had another farmer who had excess corn, but really tried to make a sale off of it at a really discounted rate. So we try to connect them with somebody, or with a congregation, or with a group who would be able to
help purchase.
We were able to connect with a local congregation who bought a bin, and then they bagged it and distributed it on Sunday to their local. So we try our best to promote our farmers, and we want them to do well. So then in turn they share that abundance that they have as well.
Oh, definitely. You brought up social media. I'll have to go like your Facebook page, kind of keep up with what's going on with that. So do we have any other questions for Dawn? All right. Well, this has been a very interesting topic to share with everyone, and it is being recorded, and we will upload it onto the YouTube channel, and we've been getting really good viewing from that. And Dawn did post her emails, and then I see there's other contact information that was shared through the post. So thank you. I do want to thank everyone for joining us, and please reach out to Dawn, and thank you to Mandy and Ashley for sharing it's definitely a win-win situation when farmers markets are able to work with the Society of St. Andrews and help with the gleaning process. So thank you all, and I wish you a happy rest of your Tuesday.